For 2,000 years, Christians have been in the Holy Land. That presence now under mounting pressure as attacks on Christians rise. In Jerusalem, spitting at clergy, vandalizing holy sites, harassment and intimidation are almost daily occurrences. While in the occupied West Bank, Israeli settler violence and economic pressure are pushing Palestinian Christians out.
I'm just wondering if you can explain why you're here.
We're here to understand how a fringe extremist ideology and nearly 3 years of war are reshaping Christian life in the Holy Land.
Police in Israel say a suspect is in custody after an attack on a nun in Jerusalem.
Caught on camera in the Holy Land when a nun is attacked.
April 2026, security video shows a nun thrown to the pavement by an Israeli extremist just outside the site of the Last Supper. The Israeli government strongly condemns the attack and the suspect is arrested.
This is where two of the quarters meet, Christian and Jewish, and so it's always been a friction point.
Father Anthony Jambroni teaches at the same school as the nun who was attacked. He has lived in Jerusalem for 10 years.
And she was coming from the other direction?
She was coming coming through this doorway here. So this is the upper room, the cenacle, the place of the Last Supper, Pentecost. This is the Domitian Abbey, the Benedictine Church.
And can I ask how she's doing?
You know, physically she's okay, fortunately, because it was very, very close. I mean, within a couple millimeters of cracking her head open there. Obviously, psychologically, that's a trauma that's going to take time.
And does anyone have any sense of what the motivation was here? I've heard some speculation that maybe he was disturbed individual or...
He could be disturbed, but he's filled with an ideology as well that I think doesn't want to accept her presence here.
Help us understand that a little bit better, because, you know, I think it's hard for people to get their heads around that, this idea that there would be hostility from certain pockets of the Jewish community towards certain pockets of the Christian community.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously a long history. It's very important to say that that's an extreme view. I think there's increasing concern that it's an extreme view that's getting mainstreamed. It's a fundamentalist understanding of the possession of the land. The land was given to the Jews, and that needs to mean all of it. It's also intensified by the fact that everyone's under the stress of the war here, and since October 7th, I mean, the entire atmosphere is very, very tense.
And do you feel that shift?
Sure, absolutely. No, this isn't the same country I came to 10 years ago.
The numbers are stark. From April to June of this year, reports of incidents against Christians in Jerusalem almost doubled compared to the 3 months before October 7th. That's according to the Religious Freedom Data Center, which has been documenting attacks for 3 years, though the spike may partly reflect more people coming forward to report. Alicia Nudelman and Rabbi Binyamin Kluger are volunteers with the center. They run a hotline and offer protective escorts around the city for clergy.
How many volunteers do you have now?
Now we are 140, I think.
So people are using the hotline?
Yeah, more.
What are they reporting to you? What is the most common thing that you're hearing?
Especially that they were spit. Again, not towards them, but beside them. And that they were calling them bad names or telling them, cursing, and also leave the land.
Leave the land.
This is not your place.
People know about inquisitions, pogroms, crusaders. So they're thinking that Christians are enemies.
Right.
Because it's all what they know sometimes about Christians. So we are here to explain to people that the history is more than that.
Jerusalem must be another kind of place for everyone.
But that will require more than good intentions. A recent study by the Interreligious Rossing Center found that roughly half of Christians younger than 45 in Israel and East Jerusalem are considering leaving, citing socio-political and security concerns. Only a third of those polled feel accepted by Israeli society. The fallout has embarrassed the Israeli government internationally. In April, it appointed Arab-Israeli Christian diplomat George Deek as special envoy to the Christian world, the first such position in Israel's history.
Attacks on Christians, on Jews, on Muslims, or anyone based on their faith or their ethnicity is immoral, illegal, and unacceptable. We should, however, be able to distinguish between serious incidents that require serious action and the false narrative that this is somehow representative of the Israeli state, Israeli society, or Christian life in Israel. The reality in Israel is that Israel remains the only place in the region where the numbers, the Christian community in Israel is actually growing.
There is a sense that these types of incidents and this type of bigotry and this ideology has been allowed to continue with relative impunity.
I acknowledge the fact that there is a rise in extremism in Israel, just like we see a rise in extremism, I think, across the world. If you look, for example, in the United States, we saw in the past 10 years an increase of 900% of anti-Semitic incidents.
Yeah.
But it doesn't excuse the fact that we also see a rise in extremism also in Israel. We can do more and we should do more, and it is my task to make sure that we will do more in the future to protect Christians and others.
But Israel's own national security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has publicly downplayed the significance of the spitting and kind of dismissed it as an ancient tradition.
I'd rather focus on statements from my minister and the prime minister who have condemned those actions unequivocally, and they have mandated me and others in the system to fight with all our power to make sure that those happen.
But just 20 miles away, the government is enabling Israeli settler extremism.
So we're driving now to a town called Taibe in the occupied West Bank, and it's been coming under attack from settlers for some years now, but those attacks have really intensified in recent months.
Palestinians of all faiths are struggling, but Christian Palestinians are leaving faster than most. In the Gospel of John, Taibe, known as Ephraim, was a place of refuge for Jesus when his life was in danger. Today, residents of the Christian town of 1200 are moving away.
From 7th of October until now, 15 families already left.
15 families.
Tens of individuals, more than 90 persons.
At the ruins of the 5th century Byzantine Church of St. George, Father Bashar Fawadle tells us the settlers have become increasingly violent and bold.
They entered with the cows, with the sheep, and they can show you by the photos.
Yeah.
They entered until here, and they arrived until this small door.
Okay.
They would to desecrated the place.
They wanted to desecrate the
Desecrate
place.
the place.
In 2025, a fire reached the church's edge. Church leaders blamed the settlers. An Israeli police investigation found no evidence of arson. After a visit to Taibe, U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee initially called the fire, quote, an act of terror. Later, he walked back his statement, saying the ancient church was not damaged, but the fire was a crime. Huckabee calls himself an unapologetic Christian Zionist, one of many American evangelicals who believe the land was divinely promised to Jews.
Does it frustrate you that so many Christians in America, I'm talking about the evangelicals, are emphatically supportive of what has been happening here?
I want to invite them to come. Come, see, hear our stories, see our realities. And after that, you can choose. You can decide what is the truth.
شغل ما فيش مصاري ما فيش ولاد بدهم يطلعوا على البلد يشتروا ب 20 شيكل ما فيش مشان الله يعني.
It doesn't take long for us to come across Roland Basir. His cement factory has come under attack this morning by settlers, as it does most days.
شوف هي بزمر إلي عشان أوقف.
He shows us videos he has compiled over months of settler extremists chasing him out of his factory.
بس ما عندك فكرة يعني ليش هن بيعملوا هيك؟
ما بعرف بدهم يستولوا على كل شيء، بقول لك هاي أرضي، بقول له أنا بالطيبة امبارح، بقول لي هذا المشاب إلي، هاي الطيبة إلي. أنا إذا هلا بصحي لي أسافر بسافر.
ايه
بسافر، ما بضل في البلد خلص. أنا فيش لي مستقبل لا إلي ولا أولادي، مش قادر أعيش أولادي.
Down at the damaged factory, the Israeli police and army finally arrive, 4.5 hours after Basir says he first called them. But minutes later, without even getting out of their vehicles, they turn around and start to leave.
I don't even understand what's happening at this stage. Are they coming? Are they going?
ما بعرف. أنا شو بعرف شو بيعمل. هاي قدامي كل شيء. See you later. Bye bye.
So they came, they
هاي الشرطة والجيش.
seem now to be leaving.
Basir spends most of his time on the phone, fighting a system that has failed to protect him.
لا معنويا، لا حدا ساعد معنويا ولا ماديا ولا اجتماعيا ولا شيء بس.
As we drive out of Taibe, we see a young settler grazing his sheep in the town's olive groves.
Hi. Hi, excuse me. My name's Clarissa Ward. I work for CNN. Can I ask you some questions? Do you speak any English? סליחה?
שלום, אתה מדבר אנגלית?
He ignores our attempts to speak with him in Hebrew and begins to film us.
This is a Palestinian town, Taibe. It's a Christian Palestinian town. I'm just wondering if you can explain why you're here or what you're doing here. This is not your land. So you can see he took a video of the whole thing, did not say a single word to us. And we're right here, right outside of Taibe.
On the approach to the Palestinian Christian town of Beit Sahur, Israeli flags fly outside the Shdema outpost, built less than a year ago. We decide to go and ask the settlers about their presence there, and are quickly stopped by two men, one of them armed.
Hi. Hello, hi.
USA?
USA, yeah, hi.
USA for?
CNN, I'm a journalist.
Once they know we are Americans, they are polite but firm, asking us to put our cameras down. He tells us this place is the state of Israel.
And what do you think should happen then to the Palestinians who are living in these towns and villages and have been for many, many years?
He asks me to call a man named Akiva, who tells us in perfect English that the outpost is legal.
It's been approved by the government.
It's been approved by the government.
It was abandoned army base for a long time.
Okay.
And the current government allowed residents to return and create a community there.
You know, I just wondered, like...
Unlike in Taibe, the Israeli army comes within minutes of our arrival, and we volunteer to leave. These outposts are illegal under Israeli and international law, but the Israeli government approved this as an authorized settlement in December. Reverend Munther Isaac was born and raised in Beit Sahur and has seen the expansion firsthand.
The suffocation of life through these settlements is increasing more and more. They're literally squeezing us inside our towns.
Satellite imagery shows the construction of 3 outposts, the round Beit Sahor and neighboring Bethlehem, in the last 2 years alone. And then there is the Wall, a brutal structure built during the Second Intifada that carves through Bethlehem and separates it from Jerusalem just 6 miles away.
This is unprecedented. This has never happened, that Bethlehem and Jerusalem have been separated. And you have a whole generation of Palestinian Christians who grew up in Bethlehem and who have never seen Jerusalem, actually. So it's impossible to quantify the impact of this separation on the Christian community. Spiritually, psychologically, economically.
The birthplace of Jesus Christ is eerily quiet these days. Tourism has cratered after nearly 3 years of war, putting added economic pressure on an already vulnerable community.
Christians are part of the Palestinian people. Whatever happened to all Palestinians happens to us. The issue with Christians is that because our numbers are small and because we lost, since the Nakba until today, since 1948, we've lost so many of our community. We became a very vulnerable community. So every family that leaves, we feel its impact.
Do you feel that the church is doing enough to protect Christians here?
Churches around the world are saying many good things. We feel they're not doing enough. And we feel they have an obligation to do more. This is the Holy Land. This is where Christianity started. We feel that statements of condemnation, of concern are not enough. What we need is action to put pressure on Israel to stop the settlement activities and to reach a settlement with the Palestinians.
For now, that seems a distant prospect. While steps are being taken to protect Christians in Jerusalem, the ultranationalist ideology driving the extremism continues to accelerate unchecked. Without decisive action, the erosion of Christian life in the Holy Land will continue. The question is whether there is the political will to change it.